The 2-month-long public lecturer strike may be headed for a rocky end following the decision by some of the striking lecturers to resume work. Kenyatta University and Moi University are seeking for an in-house solution to the strike by asking lecturers who have been on strike to resume work. The Technical University of Kenya was the first to make an offer to the striking lecturers, with some of them reported to have signed committal letters that have seen studies resume at the institution. With lecturers slowly trooping back to lecture halls, will the centre really hold for the unions? And welcome back to News Centre. Thank you very much for staying with us. This is our second hour of the show and we appreciate your company. On this hour, of course, we're still keeping an eye on a number of top stories. One, of course, is the Solai tragedy. We'll be having the latest details from my colleague on the ground, and we'll also be speaking in a few seconds to my colleague Mark Namaswa. Also in this hour, we'll be having a conversation to do with this month, which happens to be the Mental Health Awareness Month. We'll be speaking to Dr. Mumbi Chege in a few minutes. But for now, though, let's just cross over back to my colleague, Mark Namaswa. Mark, good morning. So these demolitions, we understand that the notice elapsed 2 weeks ago. Just talk to us about this situation. What are the traders there saying about these demolitions?
The people that we've met around this particular place, just to paint an exact map of exactly where we are, the demolitions are taking place just near the Sarit roundabout when you come from 9 West Towers to one side and as you head towards the mall. And this particular zone is directly opposite the Sankara Hotel. And many of the businesses that occupied this place were kiosks, food kiosks for the Mwananchi wa chini, as well as a Kuro market. People sometimes call the place Masai market. And we are told by eyewitnesses that the demolitions began at around 6 a.m. We are also curiously noticing that many of the buildings that are coming down are makeshift mabati structures, and we do not have, we haven't seen any commodities that belong to people that are strewn all over. So what people are telling us is that business people were able to salvage their items before yesterday. So what is happening right now is that the demolitions are taking place, basically affecting the buildings. Some people we've spoken to here are trying to salvage building materials like iron sheets and metal bars. Now, at this particular zone has actually been cordoned off from members of the public. What we are seeing here are security officers from the regular police, administration police, as well as NYS personnel. We also have bulldozers busy at work. The one that is right behind me belongs to the National Youth Service. I can also see a fire engine belonging to the National Youth Service and a couple of police trucks and Land Rovers. Now, only members of the press and security officials are allowed into this zone. And at the Shell petrol station just ahead of me, I can see members of the public have also milled around the place. So what we are witnessing here for people who have known Westlands, especially the Sarit roundabout, is an end of an era. People used to come here for lunch, especially workers around this particular zone will no longer have affordable Mwananchi lunch because most of the kiosks have gone down. And people who are also collectors of artifacts, curious, cannot also be able to access the market. It has been brought down completely. So it is an end of an era for a local Mwananchi who used to pass by here for lunch. But also important to note that if you climb atop any of the buildings around Westlands here, you will notice that skyscrapers have been going up against the sky in the past few years. Now, from 9 West Towers, which I'm familiar with, looking down here, it is only this particular zone around this place that had remnants of mabati structures and buildings. The rest of the landscape in Westlands is now being taken over by skyscrapers. So what you are witnessing here is the end of Mwananchi, the end of an era of Mwananchi kiosks and curio markets. And the chances are very high that what we will have here is skyscraper coming up against the sky. Back to you, Betty.
Mark, before I let you go, of course, like you mentioned correctly, this is indeed an end of about many, many years, really. These traders have been operating from there. And of course, the question in many Kenyans' minds is that, okay, so who is behind this particular, who owns this land and who would be behind this particular, demolition? Because like you mentioned, these shops have been operating for many, many, many years. And now they're coming down. Is there like another property which is coming up, the skyscrapers that you, of course, alluded to earlier?
The way the Kenyan land takeover and property development arena is structured, when you see very heavy police presence and you see very coordinated demolitions taking place, it will tell you that it must be a very serious investor. Now, we tried to speak to a few people. They were telling us that, you can find the owners around here, but they could not tell us exactly who the owner or who the new developer taking over this particular space really is. But from what we can see here, this must be some very serious developer with serious money and high voltage investment plans. But what we know so far is that chances are we will have a skyscraper coming up against this the Westlands skyline, given that the entire topography now is being taken over by high-rise structures. But as the day progresses, we'll be able to gather more information concerning who the real owners are. But from the Mwananchi perspective, it's an end of an era. Back to you.
Right, Mark, also something else, going back to the Mwananchi who has been, just operating there. They were given that notice. I don't know if you mentioned earlier, but did they have time to remove their wares?
Yes. What you are seeing here is empty structures. These are shells of businesses. You can tell from the signboards and signposts that this was a hotel, this was a kinyozi, this was a curio shop, but we haven't encountered even a single item that might have been left behind. So, looking at what has happened here is that people had ample time to evacuate their property, and what we have are losses of business spaces as well as structures, but we haven't seen any signs of commodities being damaged in the ongoing demolition.
All right, Mark Namaso, thank you very much for that. Of course, he's going to be keeping an eye on what's happening in Westlands, but like he mentioned there, those structures are now tumbling down, and we'll be keeping an eye on that story for you here on News Center. But we now want to cross over back to Nakuru. Remember that at least 20 people are feared dead and hundreds of families displaced after the walls of Patel Dam in Solai, Nakuru County, broke down on Wednesday night. Now, according to the residents, there was a loud explosion before water gushed out, sweeping away hundreds of homes in the neighborhood, including those on the expansive Nyakinyua Farm. Several people are still missing from the incident, which has rendered 450 families homeless. All right, so I understand now we have Elphas Lagat back joining us, of course, with another update. Elphas, good morning once more. Now, the last time we spoke, there was a lot of activities there, choppers just assessing the situation on the ground. Has anything changed so far?
Yes, Betty, there's a new update here. There have been hundreds of Kenya Defense Forces showing up here with shovels. They have actually gone this direction. This is where they've gone to this particular part. As you can see, this particular place actually is a sloppy place. So I'll just ask my cameraman to sort of just show us the way this particular terrain looks like. Is a sloppy area. So, and the dam is situated in a hilly place. So when one of the dam actually, when the integrity of the dam when the integrity of the dam was damaged yesterday and it broke its banks, the water now, swept down a whole village. And this particular section down there, that is where the KDF soldiers have actually gone to just try and see if they can recover more bodies. I'll just ask my cameraman to sort of show us just a picture of down there where there is still so much activity. People are going down there. We'll also be going there shortly. We only have a slight issue of network, but we will try to see if we can show you live pictures of the KDF soldiers who've come to this particular place with shovels to just try and see if they can recover more bodies. But we can confirm to you, Betty, that the number of people that have been found dead is still increasing. And it is still unconfirmed, it's still unofficial because they're still trying to see. It is something that happened unexpectedly. It was unprecedented. And we've also been reliably informed that the Interior CS, Fred Matiang'i, should be arriving shortly, as well as the Inspector General of Police, Boynet. We should be expecting them shortly so that they can give us an official update on what happens next after this really, really devastating tragedy. We also have residents who've spoken to us. They've told us this particular dams are 60 number. That is the number they told us. And one of the dams, that is the one that broke the walls and swept the entire of Energy Village, 450 homes completely swept. Initially, we had 20 people who've been confirmed dead, and a number of others have also been rushed to hospital. But the activity right now is that down there, I'll just ask my cameraman again to show you this section that people are working. That is where the KDF soldiers, in their hundreds, have gone with shovels. We will try to see if we can show you live pictures from that particular place, but we're having a network challenge. But it's a tragedy. It's a sad day in this particular place, Betty. And as we mentioned now, the preparedness is still in question because some of the residents are decrying that it's only after close to an hour that they saw Red Cross, and but the police, they're actually they're attributing most of the help that they got from the police because they were warned by sounding whistles at around 7:30 yesterday in the evening. And so that is the situation here. It is devastating. It is devastating, Betty.
All right.
And allow us just to slightly move down there to see if we can get live pictures for you, and we will update you more as this recovery of body process continues. Betty.
Telfas Lagat, maybe before you move downstream, there's something that many people really are asking, and the governor alluded to it earlier. Asked him about preliminary investigations and why this particular dam bust. Do we have any more information about just why this happened? Because this is a dam that has been there for many, many years.
Mm-hmm. Betty, right. The reason that we are getting from the conversations that we have with residents, some of the officials that are really busy right now trying to oversee the process, they're saying the mass in various parts of the country, it has been particularly high in this particular place in Nakuru.
Mm-hmm. All right, we seem to be having a problem then. Like, of course, Elfas Lagat correctly put it, they have some slight network issues there, but that's not to worry. Of course, we'll be getting more details from him. Of course, the latest he's mentioned is that the CS for Interior, Fred Matiang'i, is also well on his way there. Yesterday evening, he actually promised that the government support will be delivered today morning. And earlier on, when I spoke to the governor, Nyakinyua, he mentioned that indeed the families there need a lot of support. Of course, they need some trauma counseling because most of them have seen their family members, in that situation. And of course, many also just needing food supplies, clothes, because everything really was swept away in that unfortunate event that took place yesterday evening in Nakuru, particularly Solai. We'll keep an eye on that developing story for you here on News Center. But for now, though, remember also in this hour, we promised to have another separate conversation, and this has to be with May being the Mental Health Awareness Month. I want to introduce my guest, Dr. Mumbi Chege, who is a psychiatrist. Thank you very much for joining us here on News Center. Karibu sana.
Thank you for having me.
I know this is the first time, but you'll be just fine. I'd like you to first, we cannot really start this conversation without maybe you commenting on, just the trauma that, these families are currently going through. Some of them, were having dinner and then all of a sudden water just comes and sweeps through, homes. What are they going through right now and what help do they need so far?
It's trauma on so many levels because take you, for example. No matter what happens during the day, you always expect that when you go home, it's your place of sanctuary.
Right.
It's your place of rest and safety and happiness. You work hard the whole day to try and create that area.
Yeah.
And then now when it happens, when tragedy and such a traumatic event happens in your own home, you kind of have nowhere else to go.
Right.
You get the support, you get, everyone will come in with goodwill and they'll try and support you as much as they can. But at the back of your mind, your sanctuary has been desecrated. So right now, there's the basic needs. At this point, we're dealing with basic needs. We need safety. They need to be in a secure environment where they feel I can sit here and water is not coming to
Right.
flood me right now.
Right.
They need food. As you said, they were at dinner last night. Most likely they've been rescue efforts, so no one's really concentrated on how they've eaten. And then it's cold. We're talking about water. Water
Yes.
doesn't come in warm
Yes,
sunshine
yes,
areas.
yes,
So
yeah.
they're cold. Illnesses. Within the next few days, we'll now start talking about public health concerns like waterborne diseases and how do we have good sanitation for these people?
Right.
Are they being fed? Are they being warm? Are they being... So at that point, we're still at the basic level. Then after that, we now go to more complex issues.
Right,
Do they
right.
feel secure in the services that they're going to get? Do they feel that there is hope? Because imagine this has affected everyone. It's not something that has happened to daddy on his own
Yeah.
or the child on his on their
Yeah.
own or mommy on. It's everyone.
Everyone.
And
Right.
if you think about the psychology of the parents, their instinct is to protect the family. Yet the tragedy has happened to them where they thought they protected the family.
Yeah.
Then go
the
to
most
the
safest place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then go to the psychology of the child. Daddy's just as worried as I am. Mom is just as... We're all stuck in it together.
Right.
So at this point, it's very important to institute preventive services.
Okay.
This is a time for them to get counseling as well as the primary services, the primary basic needs.
Yes, yes.
We start the counseling right now.
Okay.
Everything that they need, everything, they should be encouraged to open up what they're saying. As much as we're trying to, now going to be trying to secure them homes and safety and all that, we institute the counseling services now.
Right now.
It makes such a difference when you are preemptive for acute stress.
Okay.
Rather than wait for it a month, 6 months, a year later, now we start talking about PTSD.
All right, all
and
right.
it was preventable.
All right.
If
Well,
not preventable, we can reduce
We
the,
can
the,
reduce.
the depth and the level.
Of the trauma.
Yes.
All right, and we'll get to the counseling so far. I mean, in a few minutes. But maybe we could just have the pictures that you're seeing on the screen. Is a story that we'll visit in a few moments. But for now, though, we just, of course, are just getting to understand, the emotional situation of the residents of Solai. Just getting the insights of Dr. Mumbi Chege, who's a psychiatrist, just to understand really what's happening. So the story we'll see on your screen is something that you're going to come to in a few minutes. Before then, let's also just talk about the counseling. I'm wondering, for the kids, I mean, we've seen kids crying because maybe they saw mommy, not being able to talk. Maybe daddy was swept away. Does counseling really matter right now?
Yes. Yes.
So there's something that you can actually tell these kids, these families, that would make sense right now?
It's not necessarily, it's not about telling people. It's allowing them to... creating a safe space for them to feel how they're feeling, for them to describe how they're feeling, for you to now start, if they get into the position where it comes out, and they keep letting it out, and they keep talking about it, and they keep working through it, me telling someone it'll be okay is not very helpful. But me allowing them to feel afraid, to feel the fear of what am I going to eat. Everyone else at this point, you're going about your day.
Yeah.
Usually you'd be going to school. You wouldn't be thinking about what am I going to eat, when am I going to sleep, but right now that is a very pressing need. So allow them that space to talk about it. Allow them that space to feel how they're feeling.
Yes.
Don't go into that mode of, no, you have something to eat. Don't think, you shouldn't be worried. You shouldn't be worried about what, because that's where they are at. Everyone else knows they're going to do their rescue effort, then they're going to go to their home. For them, they're not at that space.
They do not know what
When
next.
you tell them, yes, we'll put you in we've created a home, or we've something for you.
Or a
In
tent.
the back, or a tent. At the back
Yeah.
of their mind, they're already thinking, What if that tent is blown away? That is a pressing need.
Okay.
And we have to be very cognizant of that. And the more sensitive we are to that, and we take them step by step, step by step. So it's not, counseling right now is not about telling them, you should feel like this, you should do this, these are the things you should. No.
All right.
It's really not.
It's more than that.
Yes.
All right, and it's important that you've mentioned that, because even as we try to make these appeals that they need, they need food, they need shelter, not also to forget that they also need that emotional support.
Yes.
Interesting. All right, so now I want us also just to talk about just leaving that tragedy. We'll of course focus on it as we continue here on our show. But for now, though, it's a Mental Awareness Month. Many people still are trying to grapple with, okay, what is mental health? What can you tell us about that? Maybe in a nutshell, that we even have a day that, we take time and take stock of where we are at.
Okay. So we start with WHO, I think in 1948, they described that there is no health without mental health. Health is not the absence of disease. Mental health is healthy, emotional, behavioral, reactive state. So when you are healthy, when you have good mental health, is when you're able to maintain good behavioral, emotional, reactive state. Meaning, if something happens, you're able to react to it. If nothing has happened, you're happy with how you are. But if I have no diabetes, I go to the general doctor and I get a perfect bill of health.
Yeah.
Yet I'm unable to sleep for 4 days continuously. I will look like I have cancer and HIV and all that, because I'll be run down. My mentation is run down. So that's why we say there's no health without mental health.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. And, we've had quite a number of incidents which have warranted even us to have this conversation here. And there's the pictures that we've been playing on our screens in the last couple of months. Actually, it happens all the time when you find that, a father, the story that, we highlighted a few days ago, somebody, comes home and, kills all the children, rapes their daughter. I mean, some things that you listen and it's really, really disturbing. And many people are saying that, with the pressures of life, many people are depressed. Maybe we could understand, why would somebody do that? Why would somebody come home and, decide to take away the life of, kids, maybe helpless children?
Okay. So when we ask a question like that, we're looking at it from the point of view of normalcy. Yeah, you wouldn't, in your right mind, you wouldn't ever think of doing something like that. But when something is not right, when you are in that state of hopelessness, helplessness, it could be depression, it could be manic, it could be psychosis, it could be substance-induced mental illness, any number of factors, because we've not had the report of that patient. So we don't know what was going on.
Right.
But clearly, even if it's a psychotic episode, it's a psychotic episode within an illness.
Okay.
So it's something that has been happening. The causative issue is not, something didn't happen once and he snapped. No, the mind is better equipped than that. It's just like any other organ. And that's a really important take home I want from this interview, that the mind is like any other organ. Yeah? If I fall down, depending on how much pressure I fall down with, I could fall down and get a bruise. I could fall down and get a contusion. I could fall down and get a wound.
Yes, yes.
All of them is just my skin. It depends on how much pressure I put on the skin.
Yes, yes.
The same thing with the mind. The mind is, people need to start thinking about the mind like any other organ. Once you start thinking about the mind as any other organ, then you get to the point where if it's sick, we get help.
Okay.
If it's under pressure, is there something we can do to reduce the pressure?
But the interesting thing, Doctor, is that many people do not know. Sometimes you don't even know if you're depressed, if you're stressed. You're just going through the motions of life, and then all of a sudden you cannot, find your way to wake up in the morning and go about your day. So also, I want us to talk about, how do you know if you are mentally healthy? I don't know if that's the right way to put it. All right, so we'll take a short commercial break, but we're coming back here in a few minutes. Don't go away. Our conversation continues. That story is so devastating.